Welcome to Sailing El Jaleo. I am a mid-40-year-old who in my early 40s became disillusioned with modern society and all of its promises and pitfalls. Feeling that life was getting a little too boring, I decided to do the logical thing, which is to buy a 40-year-old sailboat and spend the next 3 or 4 years converting it into a long-range off-grid sailing vessel. Or it might have just been a midlife crisis, who knows. From there, I enlisted the help of my trusty crew, and we've been spending the last 3 years going up and down the east coast of the United States, learning how to sail, learning how to read charts, how to navigate, how to read tides, and basically just how to survive on a sailboat. From here, we plan on spending one more summer up north, doing one last round of upgrades before finally escaping the United States in late 2024 or early 2025. These are our adventures. Feel free to come along if you'd like. Last week we made it through the Ladies Island Bridge in Beaufort, South Carolina, where we hunkered down for a few days. From there we made our way to the Ashepoo cutoff in an attempt to make it to Charleston, South Carolina. And while anchored in the Ashepoo River, I break a critical engine part, and we're in the middle of nowhere. Awesome. I guess we might as well go ahead and get right into it. Grab a drink, climb aboard, and let's get going. It was a cool, overcast, pleasant morning in the month of March in the year of our Lord 2024. And that's where it all went wrong.
It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
While trying to fix a simple fuel leak in the fuel filter housing, stuff went pear-shaped rather quickly. But how did it start? Hey y'all, we are in Beaufort, South Carolina. I hope it's not too windy out here. We've been here for a few days now. What do you think, P-dubs? We've been here for a few days, and yesterday it was raining all day, and it just stopped raining this morning about an hour ago. You could see a band of rain clouds over there, but it looks like they've moved on, so we're just getting ready to, well, actually, we are doing some grilling. We got some chicken thighs on there for the pups, and I've got some kielbasa for myself. The pups are eagerly anticipating some grub. But tomorrow we'll have the current all the way up to, you okay, P-dubs? Oh, I know, yeah. You said it, little princess. You said it, Prinny. So tomorrow we'll ride the current all the way up to the Ashepoo cut, and then we get into the Edisto rivers, which is the north and south Edisto rivers, and we'll probably take those. We might do the north Edisto River. That one's not too bad, but the south has a really strong current, so we'll probably wait and time the current on that one. And that day we won't go very far. We'll just go up to maybe halfway to Charleston, which is only maybe 8 or 9 miles, but the current is that wicked there. I got caught there at the wrong time once, and I think I was going 0.6 knots for about 4 hours, which, yeah, is really frustrating. So anyway, hey y'all, we were going to move on this morning. It wasn't supposed to start raining until 6 o'clock this evening, but I don't know, it's between 7 and 8 in the morning. What do you think, Vegan, huh? What do you think? And the kids are restless, but yeah. So a little surprise rain this morning. It's supposed to clear up in about an hour, but I don't know, we'll see. Much to our surprise, the weather actually did clear up in about an hour. Normally we wouldn't risk it. There was a chance for scattered showers throughout that day, but we knew there was 40-mile-per-hour winds coming in the very next day, and the anchorage that we were in Beaufort was a little bit exposed, and I knew this stand of trees was there in the Ashepoo River. and the wind was going to be blowing out of the north, which is the direction this trees would protect us from perfectly. So we decided to risk the patchy rain and go ahead and try and make a run to the Ashepoo River. Ah, and alas, we have finally come to the part where I break shit. You know, I don't know where that voice in the beginning came from. Oh, in the year of our Lord, 2024. You know, it started out as a really bad Irishman and then morphed into a little bit of a vampire, so yeah. You know, recently someone left a comment saying that our videos were a little bit painful, and yeah, I can confirm. They're pretty awful, so yeah, feel free not to watch, that's okay. A little bit of healthy shit keeps you grounded every now and again, am I right? So, yes. So I knew we were going to be in the Ashepoo River for a day. We decided to stay there and wait out the high wind. And I'm just going to let that notification go through. Screw it. So we were waiting out high wind, and we had this nagging leak in our fuel filter housing. Down at the bottom, there's a fitting where if you get some water in your fuel, you can actually empty it out there. So that fitting had been leaking for almost this entire trip, so about 6 months now, and I had taken it out 3 or 4 times and tightened it up. But it's a plastic bowl. The bowl on the bottom of the fuel filter is plastic. The fitting itself is plastic, and I didn't want to over tighten it and break it. And here we are sitting in the Ashepoo River, probably 20 miles from anything, and I decided to go ahead and put a little Teflon tape on that fitting, which you're not supposed to do, but you know, I worked in the chemical industry for a lot of years, and we used Teflon tape where you weren't supposed to all the time. It was the only thing sometimes that would stop leaks. So with all the qualifiers out of the way, I put a little Teflon tape on there, and of course I over tightened it by about 1/16 of a turn. I was sitting right on the edge, and I'm like, should I give this just one more little eh? And I gave it that one more little eh, and then it broke. And that is not a spare part that I ever anticipated needing, and they're expensive, as I've since found out. They're over $100 but I'm going to keep looking. There's got to be a cheaper one somewhere. The problem is this fuel filter housing is 40 years old, so they've changed since then because, of course, why would you, I mean, something works perfectly, why would you keep the same design? Let's change it so we can sell new ones and updated parts, but I digress. So I had to try and come up with a way to plug the fuel filter housing, because you cannot run the engine without a fuel filter. If push came to shove, there is a very small secondary fuel filter on the engine. I've only changed it once when I was having problems last year, and it was clear it should never get clogged. This big main fuel filter should filter everything out. So if push came to shove and I did have to do something drastic, I could bypass the fuel filter and trust that small secondary fuel filter. If you got crud into the injectors, then you're in trouble. So it wasn't something that I wanted to do. And obviously I didn't have that part. I didn't have any fitting that would fit into that hole. And I think a lot of times when there's a problem, you know, one of the biggest things that I've learned boating is patience. And just to step back, you know, we were in a safe anchorage. Nothing was going to happen to us. Even if we had to sit there for a month, it's no big deal. You know, everything, we were safe. So, you know, when something goes wrong, you know, you hear that plastic fitting break and you get that flop sweat panic. I've broken so many things, so many critical things on this boat over the years. And I used to get very anxious. You'd rush into something saying, oh shit, I gotta fix this, and you just kind of freak out. But, you know, this time when I heard that fitting break, the flop sweat panic only lasted for about 4 to 7 seconds, and then I'm like, all right, we're safe. No big deal. I can figure something out, and if I can't, then we'll deal with that. So, and a lot of times you get tunnel vision. Okay, so this was a fitting on the bottom of that plastic bowl. How do I plug that hole? So I have to find something that'll fit in that hole, but that wasn't the actual problem. The actual problem was I needed to stop fuel from coming out of that hole. So once I started looking at the problem from that angle, which was the real problem, plugging the hole was not the real problem, stopping it from leaking was the real problem. So once I identified the real problem, and it sounds stupid to say what is the actual problem, because you can get locked in on one solution when there could be a whole multitude of solutions, which there was in this case. So once I identified the actual problem, I looked at the fuel filter housing itself, and I noticed that it's screwed together in two parts, the bottom bowl and the top housing that holds the fuel filter. I'm like, okay, well, if the housing comes in two pieces, there's got to be a gasket in there. And if there's a gasket in there, then I can use that to seal a plastic bag inside the bowl of that housing, and that will stop fuel from coming out of the hole in the bottom, which was where the fitting was missing. So I went ahead and cut the top off a Ziploc bag, carefully put it in there, made sure there were no creases, put the housing back together, and I actually put the screws back in right through the plastic of the Ziploc bag. And I didn't tighten it down super tight because I didn't want that housing, or I didn't want the O-ring when it was being seated into the housing to tear the bag. So I snugged it up real gently and I put it back in, turned on the fuel, and it worked. So then I ran the engine for a while just to make sure that nothing would go wrong. There's no way that the plastic bag could get sucked into the housing. There are plastic parts inside of that housing that would prevent that. So I knew that wasn't going to be an issue. But I ran the engine, I revved it up to full power, and I just wanted to make sure I could monitor our fuel pressure, I could monitor our fuel gauge just to make sure we weren't leaking and that we weren't pulling too much fuel pressure, and everything was fine. So that was the on-the-cuff or on-the-fly solution that I came up with to fix that problem. And not every problem can be fixed, but there's almost always a solution to a problem. Obviously if you crack the engine block, you can't fix that with a Ziploc bag or duct tape. But oftentimes there's a solution to a problem if you just calm down, identify the actual problem, and then work with it. And that's all we have time for this week. I would like to give a massive shout out to my Patreon crew. Without your guys' support, I wouldn't make these videos. And my Patreon crew is Joan and Juddy Judnick, Val and Chris Alcorn, Denise and Eli Sackett, Sherry Erickson, Deb Shaw, Matthew Spotton, Peter Allen, and Natalie Linehan. Thank you guys so very much. Your support really means the world to me. I do have one legacy patron member, and her name is Joan Linbo. Unfortunately, she has passed on, but she lives on in our hearts forever. We really miss you, Joan. If you are interested in joining our Patreon crew, there is a link in the description down below, and that'll take you to our Patreon page where you can sign up. And there are hundreds, literally hundreds of extra videos and photos of our travels, and I try and keep everything there up to date and post at least once or twice a week, so it gives you a little peek behind the curtain. If you do like our videos, please like, comment, and subscribe. That'll help us out more than you'll ever know, and that actually doesn't cost you anything, so hit that like button. Alrighty, I hope you all are well, and we'll see you next week.